Appeals is in, recording is in progress. This is the Wellfleet Zoning Board of Appeals, and we have one case before us tonight. It's 2124 Peter Cook, 38 Main Street, map 15, parcel 15. The application for a variance to replace an existing accessory building with another accessory building slightly larger within the side setback. And the board is going to be what I see. So it's Jan and myself and Andy and Trevor and Will. Okay, Mr. Cook, our procedure is that you present to us what you are planning to do, and then we will go from there.
Okay, well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Glad to meet you all here remotely. I'm representing my mother, who is actually the owner and the resident at 30 Main Street. I'm in Wellfleet. I'm a resident of Wellfleet, but at a different address. What I'm helping her out with this, we're trying to move a building, a historic building that was rescued from another site. Some of you may know the story behind it, but essentially moving it to her property. In our view, it's a historic building built circa 1950 or so by my grandfather, my mother's father, here in Wellfleet. At the time, he was a shell fisherman, carpenter. He also owned the movie theater downtown in Main Street. And this was an office that was built near there between the movie theater and the Congregational Church. It moved out to Route 6 when the highway came through. And it's been rescued from demolition. Now that the state owns that property that it was situated on. And we have it safe and looking forward to moving it to a final location. We'd like to replace the current auxiliary building or shed that she has on her property by moving this building in. It's larger than the current building, which is 120 square feet, and this building is 252 square feet. It's similarly proportioned though, so it scales a bit. The main difference is that the building that we've rescued, that we're trying to move, has a 6 foot by 6 foot pop out on the back end, and 5 feet of that would be within the 20-foot setback. That's after we've already moved. We're going to move the building slightly forward from where the shed is currently located, but there are some constraints that we're dealing with, and so we moved it forward 1.5 feet. That leaves 5 feet behind, and so that 6 foot section of the building, 6 by 6, essentially 5 feet of that would be within the 20-foot setback. So we're requesting a variance, please. This is to the adjoining property, which is the next door neighbors, the Piping Plover. And I believe he's submitted a letter of support to your board. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have regarding the circumstances that for the placement of the property.
Does anyone have any questions as far as the circumstances of the placement of the property? You want to hold questions until I just go around the board?
All right.
Okay.
I'll make a couple other comments then. I mean,
Okay.
as you are probably well aware, some of the distinguishing features of the property are that a majority of it is within a wetland setback, and that's both in the rear and in the front because of its proximity to Duck Creek and then to the wetland that's behind the house. The house was built in 1820. It's been in the family most of that time. We're very attached to it. We try to take extremely good care of the property. Placing this, what I'll consider an heirloom auxiliary building, is part of that long-term effort to take care of the property. Wetland setback is one of the constraints on what we're doing. The site of the current shed is within the wetland 100-foot buffer, and we're working with the Conservation Commission on that so that we can mitigate and remediate any disturbance to the area. It's away from the 50-foot buffer though, so it is within the 100-foot, but it's away from the 50-foot restriction. that's one thing that drives us to the location of the current building. Current building is the one we need to replace anyway. It's past its it's in a condition that it needs to be replaced at any rate. And using this building to replace it serves two purposes. Septic, so we have the wetlands on one side, we have the existing septic system on the other side. The topography of the area is level for where the shed is. As you get in front of the shed, there's a slope that leads toward the house, the 1820 house. And we want to avoid, it would likely require some earth moving to address that slope if the building was to move forward. And so we're trying to minimize any land disturbance, especially considering it's within the wetland buffer. And that's another reason why we'd like to keep it essentially centered on the site of the existing shed. The other and the last one I'll mention is the aesthetics of the historic property. We believe it'll suffer if the auxiliary building is moved forward toward the house. Its current location is tucked into some dense foliage. Those of you who were able to, who had a chance to visit the site know what I mean. It's tucked back in. It's not visible from the roadside. If we move it forward, it will be visible from the roadside, is my belief. It's also not visible from the abutting property as it's currently situated. And we think that it's a good balanced positioning of the building to do that. And so therefore we are requesting that 5-foot variance, please.
Okay, and I do have two letters that I will read. First one is from Zachary Ment, who is at the Piping Plover. I'm writing in support of the application by Mrs. Cook to replace their current auxiliary building at 30 Main Street with the rescued structure that will protrude slightly closer to the property line per their application. I have been to the site where the proposal is clearly staked and believe there is absolutely no negative impact on any abutting property nor to the public view. The positive impacts of this proposal therefore easily outweigh the negatives, and I strongly encourage you to grant whatever relief is necessary to execute the plan as proposed. And the other is, I believe, from the other side, from Robert Latender. As the owner of 10 Main Street, the abutting property to 30 Main Street, we support the applicant's request for relief from the setback requirements for the replacement of their shed at 30 Main Street. We believe that the proposed replacement structure and its placement will be an improvement to the neighborhood despite its slightly larger size and proximity to the abutting property than the current conditions. And I don't think we have anyone actually in the audience to speak to this, since we are the whole audience. So I will go to the board for questions. Trevor.
The first question I have is sort of procedural. He applied for a variance, but we do this kind of thing all the time under a special permit.
Right, I can answer that one.
Okay, thank you.
The problem is that this, and I have my answer from the building inspector, because that's where I went on that to try to figure it out. I had the same problem. The problem is that right now the shed is conforming. It's not non-conforming, and therefore a special permit would require us to create a non-conformity.
Got it. Yeah,
So therefore the fallback position is a variance, provided he can meet the 4 criteria of the variance. Okay. Other questions, Trevor?
No, I mean, I did go there today. I walked back. I looked at where it's been staked out. I mean, it seems like, to me, it seems like a no-brainer, okay thing, but that's with doing it as a special permit. A variance obviously has a bigger hurdle to get over. So if we figure out how to get over the hurdle, it seems like it's a reasonable request.
Okay. Will.
Yeah, Mr. Cook, could you tell me what the substantial hardship is?
The existing shed is going to needs to be replaced now. It's past its useful life. It's coming apart, has termite damage. And so we have this rescued building in our possession that is has already been moved off of its previous site, and we want to use it to replace the shed. Otherwise, well, first of all, we'll have to dispose of the rescued building, but we'll also need to construct a newly built shed to replace the old one.
Okay, and can you also then explain to me what differentiates your mother's property from the surrounding properties?
From the surrounding properties, well, the thing that within the district that the property is situated, the fact that a majority of the property is wetland. There are other properties that have similar constraints, but it's most properties within the district aren't affected that way. So that's one distinguishing feature. And then others that had to do with the specific location of the building include the topography, the slope that's in front of the building. And then another was the aesthetics of the historic district. And trying not to make the property crowded, but preserving the aesthetics of the historic district in Wellfleet and trying to keep that building tucked back so that it's not visible from the roadside.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
That's
Jan.
it, Sharon. Fine.
Okay,
I
Jan?
don't have any more questions. Anyway.
Okay, Jan.
Well, I went into this thinking that asking for a variance was just a mistake, and that it really should be a special permit. I'm still of that opinion. I don't think I've been convinced otherwise yet. I'm just trying to understand, other than if you move this 5 feet forward, away from the side setback, other than being able to see it from the road, I don't know what would be a difficulty of doing that, or
Well, we felt that on balance, we're moving it forward already 1.5 feet, and that was in order to, we realized the building is larger. The main body of the building is 2 feet deeper than the existing building. The existing building is 10 feet. The new building, the main body is 12 feet. We're accommodating 1.5 feet of that 2 feet by moving the face of the building forward toward the house, and to bring it forward another 5 feet toward the house will create a crowded condition on the property that I think is to the property's detriment, and aesthetically as part of historic Wellfleet, I mean, as part of the district. And again, because of the topography, the foliage, very dense foliage on all sides of on 3 sides of the building. I think that it preserves a certain atmosphere and a look to the property, and with the accessory building or auxiliary building tucked back in, we think that we can do that best.
Part of the property is definitely in the flood zone. That area is not in the flood zone, am I correct?
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
The portion of the property that's in the flood zone is, I'll say, on the northeast corner of the property. And so we're dealing on the south, basically the center of the south side of the property. So we're far away from floodplain.
I think what you're trying to do is great. And it's great. It's terrific that you're trying to save that building, and it's a meaningful building to you. It's just that 5 feet I'm having a hard time with. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Andy.
Yeah. What is this little bump in the shed that you would like to install?
It's going to be essentially a storage part of the shed. I mean, of the build. I hate to call it a shed. If you look at the outline, actually, of the building, it has the exact same profile as the historic house on the property. And so it is essentially the silhouette of an old cape. And that's why my grandfather built it that way. And so that's why it has that pop out. It basically is the same footprint of this house, which is actually he owned. It was the house my grandmother was born in. And it's also a twin of the house that he was born in on the other side of town, on the other side of Route 6, another old cape.
Would it be possible to remove that section of the building? And
Well, I suppose,
preserve the rest of it?
well, the rest of it's a rectangle. We think that removing that pop out section, it's 6 feet by 6 feet, essentially eliminates I mean, we're trying to maintain the property at the building as it is. We think that there's something meaningful to why it was designed the way it was, to essentially represent the same outside look as a traditional Cape Cod house. And so if we remove that back section, then we have a rectangle shed. And it was built 70 years ago. We really like to keep it the way it is, if that's possible. It's an attractive building as it's designed, and it was designed with care. We'd like to try to save the building as it was originally built.
But if you did remove that section, would the remainder of the building be structurally sound?
It would require, I mean,
What would it require? Yeah.
sure. Well, I haven't done an assessment of what we need to do to the building to chop off that back section. I mean, we can do that. I can imagine off the top of my head, it's probably structurally sound. We would simply be amputating the back of the building.
And that little area there's nothing specific to that area, is there? Does it have a different purpose, if you will, than the rest of it?
It did in its original configuration, which was when it was originally built. That was in fact a bathroom. We're not going to be using it as a bathroom. The building won't be plumbed. We want to keep it the same, basically with the same, for environmental impact reasons, we don't want to use it that way.
Is this the structure that was on the Amsler property on Route 6?
There were two structures there. This is one of them. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have
Yeah.
any
Okay.
So what is you said that bump out is used for storage. What's the rest of the building?
It would similarly be used for storage at this point. I mean, it's a one room. It's one room. And then there's that adjoining pop out room on the back, and that room has a door. It was originally used as an office and had that, what I'll call a bathroom on the back end, a washroom. And this was all, again, it was all framed and outlined the way it was because it represented the traditional Cape architecture. So it's the main body of the building is a single room.
That you would be using for storage, similar to a shed.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, like my fellow board members, I love what you're doing. And if I could do this as a special permit, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But the problem is I look at the 4 criteria I've got to meet for a variance. And I don't, yes, there are wetland considerations, but I don't see enough in that to justify that it's a very different, it's the following circumstances related to the soil condition, shape, or topography specifically affect the land and or structure in question, but do not generally affect the zoning district in which it is located. I don't think foliage and bordering a wetland is that dramatic to meet that criteria. And the other problem I'm having with it is a literal enforcement of the provisions of this bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner. And while I understand that it would be less expensive probably to move this shed than it would be to buy or build a new one, it is nonetheless an accessory building. It's not the main building of the house, which is where I would be more inclined to be able to support a variance. And, I think absolutely number C, desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. I think you definitely meet that one. And certainly your abutters are, supporting that idea, which, and I would certainly agree. But then desirable relief may be granted without nullifying or substantially derogating from the intent and purpose of this bylaw. I think part of the intent and purpose of this bylaw is for us not to create nonconformities under a variance unless there are extreme situations in which a person is really going to be unable to live in their property. And to do this, to go down a road where we're going to let accessory buildings be on the edge of the property when there's no nonconformity right now, that troubles me. So I'm not in a good place for a variance. The funny thing is, of course, if your current shed, if this were 10 by 12, you wouldn't be before us at all. I mean, it's just, you would be replacing one shed with another, and it would simply be the building inspector. But because it is twice the size, it's now no longer really defined as a shed by Wellfleet. It's now defined as an accessory building. So, I do see now why it's a variance request, but it's unfortunate that it's a variance request because the hurdles are so much bigger for a variance than they are for special permit.
No, I appreciate I appreciate what you're saying. If I could elaborate a little bit on any of these points. I know there are 4 points that you're trying to, that you're seeking to get a case made on. As far as the hardship or economics, we did price what a new shed would be, and it's given material costs these days to build a new shed, there would be approximately $10,000. And we did get that priced out and got an estimate so that we had something legitimate to compare this to. The building, the portion of the building that would extend beyond the 20-foot boundary, because it's 6 feet by 5 feet essentially, so it's 30 square feet. The main building is not going to be crossing that 20-foot boundary. So I would request that a variance could be granted, considering that the portion of the building is really 30 square feet. That's a question here.
The problem here is that the side setback in the central district is 35 feet. A shed doesn't have to be. I mean, that's what I'm looking at anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'd like to be wrong. Oh, 20. Okay,
20.
Never mind. I stand corrected. Never mind.
It's 20.
Yep, never mind. 20. Good. I'm looking at the wrong C. Go ahead.
Madam Chairman, I'm confused. I'm not sure why the applicant is adamant about a variance and why a special permit wouldn't work. And perhaps you have to give something and move it 5 feet. I'm just confused as to why this has to be a variance. I don't see that it qualifies as a variance. And I mean,
because
I understand that the applicant and Mr. Cook, I do understand what you're trying to do. I understand that where you want to place it, but maybe you can't do exactly what you want to do.
I will read you what I have from Mr. Staley's letter to Mr. Cook. Now, to replace this shed with an accessory building which exceeds 120 square feet, you would normally need to satisfy a 20-foot setback to your right property line. Since you are proposing to locate the new to property accessory building closer than the requisite 20 feet, then you are properly petitioning the Board of Appeals to vary from the terms of the Wellfleet zoning bylaw with a dimensional variance request.
I'd like to see you do this, but maybe not exactly the way you want to.
I'm not sure I understand. You mean not request a variance or,
Yeah.
okay.
And-
No, he says that Victor says a new non-compliant situation cannot be created by a special permit. Only a variance procedure can create something that doesn't satisfy a specific portion of the Wellfleet zoning bylaw. See, he's in compliance right now.
Okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
My question is, would he even, if you were willing to move it 5 feet out of that setback, Mr. Cook, would he even need a special permit, or would he, because it's a non-conforming property and a non-conforming?
No,
You
no,
could
he
do it
would
by
not.
right at that point.
He could do it by right. He could do
Or
it
if
by
he
right.
lopped off the 6x6 section, as Andy was insinuating, then he could do it by right.
Right. So it's only if it goes completely as it's proposed to us that it needs a variance. Otherwise, it could be done by right in one of those two different ways.
Madam Chair, we've got an interesting situation here, whereas if this existing shed had 5 more square feet, it would be non-conforming and we could grant a special exception.
Right.
So, maybe we ought to have a second look at the variance. I mean, I think there's a substantial hardship. It says financial or otherwise. And I think the applicant has told us why he deems it to be a substantial hardship. To them it is.
No, but will then you become,
I'm just
and then you
telling
go back
my-
to
my-
the kind of
I
things
know
that,
I know
well, the
you
thing that
guys
worries
down
me,
here
just let
hate
me
to
tell you
variances.
what I'm worried about is that, I think about that garage that was the similar kind of situation that we were out on Day Drive. And, because they were conforming, they could not do their garage the way they wanted to do it because it would go into the setback. And, we go down a path that, yeah, I know, I'm with you, but that's what I was thinking about. You can go ahead now.
Well, I don't worry about consistency as much as you do. I think we should review every case on its own merits. And this is much different than a garage.
Is it? But does it not set the stage for garages?
No, there's no precedent value, but I can think of someone on Holbrook Avenue that we gave a pass to. Anyway, I won't say
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
anything more,
Go ahead.
but I feel that there is something unique about the property, the amount of wetland. It certainly does not. There's no detriment to the neighborhood.
Right.
You can tell because there's no one here but us. And one abutter who's closest to this, I think they're both
Two.
for
It's both sides have
both
supported
10
it.
Main Street, though, I believe.
No,
I don't think they're both 10 Main, which is
Yeah, they're one and the same.
the pot shop. So
I see.
they're not
I
two
see.
abutters.
Okay, it's the same person.
there's
Okay,
one.
got it. Mhm.
Actually,
yeah.
one is the business owner and one is the property owner.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
All right.
And I think in this case, it wouldn't substantially degrade or be derogatory to the intent and the purpose of the bylaw. I mean, there's nothing out there. But anyway, that's my say.
Mhm. Mhm. Anybody else?
Well, I'll just say that I'm troubled. On the one hand, I would like the applicant to be able to do this. It's the 6-foot part of the shed that's going to stick out is not going to really be a problem to anybody. My problem is that the applicant has at least one alternative that I don't quite understand. Maybe Mr. Cook, you can address this again. The reasons why you can't situate this new building 5 feet forward, in other words, to get so that you're still within the setback, is what? It's the way it'll look from the street. Could you just address this?
Yeah, it's part of it. Part of it is, I'm trying to think of the right words to put it in. I suppose if I was an architect, I could describe this, and I'm not. The balance of the property will be impaired. It's a historic property. We're trying to preserve it. We're taking great care to take care of it. We have long-term plans of keeping the property. It's special to us, and we think this is an enhancement for the property and for the district. Moving the building forward, we end up, I think, what's the word I'm looking for? It negates the improvement aspect of this move. I think by moving the building forward toward the historic house, we create this crowding effect of buildings on the property that will be visible from the street, but more to us will be visible to us. It's disruptive of the property and the balance on the property. And I'm sure I'm not using the correct technical terms, but
I understand what you're saying.
The existing building, the shed, has been there for a long time. It's very well situated where it is. It has resemblance of a small cottage surrounded by a garden. We're essentially replacing that, minimizing disturbance. As we've explained to the Conservation Commission, our plan is to then go into an area around the building, 40 feet by 40 feet square, so 1,600 feet, with a remediation plan to do native plantings in that whole area, because as you would have seen, as you saw going to the building, there's some invasive English ivy back there. We're going to take all that out, and we want to restore native plantings back there. And so really do a site improvement in that whole area. And so I know you're not the Conservation Commission, but I'm just relating that to you so you're aware of the care we're trying to take in doing this right.
I'm aware of the ivy. I was stepping on it. Madam Chair, I mean, we have bylaws.
Right.
They're there for a purpose. I'm troubled about the hardship. I understand everything the applicant is saying, and I think that the plan to locate the building where it is, I understand why, and it does make sense. The question is that enough to give us the authority to grant a variance? And by the same token, as I asked Mr. Cook, could he cut off that back section of the building? And I understand that would be at some cost, but I don't see that it would affect the purpose of the building, or the use of the building, if you will. And to me, that seems like a reasonable alternative. But at any rate, I'm really troubled. I don't quite know how I'm gonna vote on this.
I, Andy, if I could just ask you a question, because can you explain to me what any public benefit would be by cutting off the 6x6? Does anyone benefit other than the bylaw? I guess some holy grail.
Well, I mean, I'll ask you a question.
No, I'm fine. No, I'm happy to.
It's a law, Will. What's it there for?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I am actually, because remember, bylaws are there for the whole town. And that's why you have variances and special permits. Bylaws are there for the whole town. And obviously they can't take every factor into consideration. So you could have a 5-foot setback if you were, you could put up a 10,000 square foot building 5 foot from the setback. If the land next door were part of the national seashore, it would never be built upon.
Mhm.
What's the harm? There's no public benefit to saying, oh, you got to be 50 feet away. So I think that's why they put variances, special permits, is because they obviously have to paint with a very broad brush when they draft zoning regulations. So that's my answer to your question about why have a variance. I mean, if you wanted to have a zoning ordinance that was 1,500 pages long, you wouldn't need our board.
True, but the setbacks were not created arbitrarily. There was a reason to have a 20-foot setback in the central district, and a reason to have a 25-foot side setback in the, if I'm right, in the residential district. But
in this case, can you explain to me what the benefit of a 25 versus a 15-foot setback is?
You mean the 20-foot? Yeah.
Yeah. What benefit do we bestow on anyone to grant to not grant this? I guess
That's a good question, and I understand what you're saying.
no, that's fine. Okay.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Jan.
I keep looking for a variance section, and for some reason I can't find it now. Could you tell me what page it's on?
Sure, it's 8.3.
It's on page 75.
75. Yeah, and the criteria are all in the same paragraph. They are not broken out.
Right.
Mhm.
Excuse me, may I offer one comment that I hope will,
Mhm.
so I certainly appreciate the concern that that all the points that are necessary for a variance, that they be substantial. And
Right.
regarding hardship, I know as I think it was Andy mentioned, financial or otherwise. And so as I sit here thinking about it, we hadn't contemplated, the idea of removing the back part of the building because of how well built the building is, and because it's just integral to the building. I suppose that as I sit here and think it through, one aspect of the hardship would be that it would remove, it would I'd say destroy, it would certainly reduce its the importance of the building as a building that was built 70 years ago. It represents was built to represent the traditional Cape Cod house architecture, and was built to scale in that way, and which we regard as a special feature of the building and inherently part of its value. And so that, if one could call it a historic hardship, or a, a devaluation of the importance of the building, I guess I would offer that comment as well.
It's not possible to turn it around.
No, well, it would be,
I mean, if you turned it around, it'd fit.
that would be
No one is going to see that historic feature in the dense foliage there.
I think turning the building around would, it would be clearly be looking at the back end of the building
Okay,
with the face of the building facing
the foliage.
the foliage and the property and the split rail fence
Right.
On the neighboring property. Yeah.
Okay. Dan, did you find the
I
section?
did. I still don't believe this qualifies as a variance. I simply don't. Variance as far as I have, and some of you have been on the board far longer than I have, but variances are very difficult to come by in Wellfleet. And my understanding really is that it's for applicants who simply couldn't do something without a variance. They couldn't build a house. They couldn't.
Right.
And that's not the case here. There are alternatives, and I know they're not what you want, what the applicant wants, but there are alternatives.
Yeah.
And that's it. I got nothing else.
Yeah, that's where I am. Trevor?
I fail to see the hardship. I mean, if this had been a special permit, it's like I said at the beginning, I think it would be a no-brainer, but I fail to see the hardship for the variance.
Yeah, I do too. And trying to write this, I can't justify it.
Yes, you're gonna have to write a finding.
I'd have to write a finding, and I can't justify these. Doesn't meet the criteria that, I mean, that's what I tried to do this afternoon, was to write findings, and I can't. I don't see the hardship, and I'm not entirely sure I see the topography problem. So where we are, I think, is that, we're not sort of on a variance. You do seem to have one voice for, but you need more than that. So the question really, Mr. Cook, is, do you want us to deny this, or do you want to withdraw it, go back and rethink it? Because if we deny it, I don't know, the building inspector says something about there's a 2-year limit on when you can come back.
Could you help me understand, is there a process? Are you recommending there's a different process to use besides seeking a variance in this case?
No, we're saying that we wish there were. We are saying that we wish you qualified for a special permit, and we would give you a special permit and all would be well, but you don't, because right now your property is conforming, and we can't by special permit create a new non-conformity, which is what we would be doing. So really the avenues are either to be conforming, which means stay off that 15 feet, stay up the 20 feet, or to get a variance. We don't think we can meet the criteria for a variance. Variances, I mean, you could appeal that to the court, but variances are tough. Variances are tough to succeed in court with too.
Well, and I appreciate your situation, what you're trying to do. Let me offer one suggestion, if I may.
Sure.
That if there could be a justification made, if you're looking for some discriminating aspect of this, one is the aesthetics of the historic district that we're trying to preserve by tucking that pop out section of the building. That's the only section that would be across this 20-foot line, but that we're trying to preserve the aesthetics of Wellfleet's historic district. And on a historic property, I know, mention was made earlier of a previous case you had with somebody trying to build a garage. If I was trying to build a garage, I wouldn't be coming for a variance. I mean, this is a unique situation for us. We're not, this is not a modern garage. This is a building that's old Wellfleet, and we're trying to preserve it, and we're trying to tuck it into the property of the builder of that house. And if that additional consideration of preservation of the aesthetics of Wellfleet's historic district, if that can help provide any weight to the justification, I just offer it for your consideration.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is a question that I have to anyone, Mr. Cook or anybody on the board tonight.
Mhm.
I'm looking at the larger house with the plan that was submitted.
Mhm.
And I don't know what the side setback to the, whatever the other side is, I guess it would be west. And I suppose it's pre-existing, so, but I mean, would that create a nonconformity?
No,
Okay,
not according to the building inspector. I mean, I was trying to get this into special permit territory.
what
Oh.
is the side setback, Mr. Cook, on the other side of the house, the main house?
What is the side setback on the?
You don't have
main-
it, you don't have it set out here on your plan.
Yeah, just to eyeball it here, I'm going to say that it's the setback to the edge of the property is, if you're talking about the side of the house, it's probably 15 feet to the property
Mhm.
line
On the other side.
Mhm.
on the other side of the house.
I think what the building inspector is saying, though, is that we can't be creating new nonconformities with a special.
We could
permit.
extend a nonconformity,
Right.
like if you're building onto the house.
Yeah,
If you had an accessory building that was already non-conforming,
Right.
I
Right.
see.
but we don't have that.
Okay.
I don't think that, I mean, I think I hear the aesthetic and I agree with the aesthetic, but I don't think aesthetics is part of the variance criteria.
Is okay. And I'm just trying to be helpful here. Is there
No,
any
I know.
aspect of the fact that it's a historic district? Is there any consideration for special consideration for preservation of a historic district that could be applicable?
Not in zoning.
Not in
Yeah.
zoning, no.
No, there's no reason why you can't preserve it on the lot. You just don't want to put it where you'd have to put it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Again, our concern is that we have a house that's 200 years old and that we end up in a situation where we're negating the advantage of saving the older building or the auxiliary building, saving that. We negate the advantage of doing that by damaging or doing something that's detrimental to the overall historic property.
Yeah.
If we move it
Mhm.
too close to the house, that's our,
Yep.
Okay.
It's actually a shame because the building that's right there now, the little shed that's there now is lovely. I mean, it just looks like a cottage. It's too bad this one isn't the same size. It would be just, that could just fit right in there and be lovely.
Well, we were interested in trying this. We think there's certainly a lot of history with the building we're trying to rescue, and
Yep.
this is a shame.
I agree.
I agree.
I do too,
Mhm.
but you can still place it on the property. It's just not where you want to place it.
Yep. So my suggestion is that you not go all the way to a denial, but that you withdraw without prejudice because it keeps your options open. To noodle around with this and see,
Do the same rules
Right.
apply? And I think I know the answer to this. It wouldn't make a difference if it was a 5 foot or a 50 foot or a 1 foot variance. Is the same rules
no,
apply?
it'd be the same rules. Yeah, it's just variance. Once we're in variance territory, we're in variance territory,
Well, if you can't grant the variance, then we withdraw it without prejudice.
without prejudice. Okay, I need a motion to that effect.
So move.
Trevor, Jan, you want to?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor. Jan,
Aye.
Trevor?
Aye.
Will?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
And myself, aye. So I am sorry about this one, Mr. Cook. It is a lovely piece of property and we wish we could help you.
I do too.
Yeah. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Chris, I think we have one set of minutes.
I wasn't sure on the vote on that. Could you repeat?
It was,
I moved it, Janet seconded, and everyone was in favor.
everyone was in favor.
Thank you.
And we have minutes from 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
Yes. I need a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
Andy seconds, all in favor, Jan,
Aye.
Trevor.
Aye.
Will,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
and myself. Aye. Okay. And the only thing to tell you is that we will on the 28th of October be starting at 6:30 with an executive session to hear advice of counsel.
Is that our next meeting?
No, we have a meeting on the 14th, but the 14th, Mick is going to be in Ireland. And so I did not want to have the executive session without him. And he was volunteering gamely to call in from Ireland. And I said, no, I really don't
He'd
think
be
we're going
calling
to
in
do
from a pub.
Yeah, he'll be drunk.
that. But Mick doesn't drink. Otherwise, the rest of us,
So
rest of us would be.
Can I ask, what's on the agenda for a couple weeks from now?
Chris, can you tell us? I know the
Well-
Gannon property is withdrawn.
We technically have 3 hearings.
Yep.
But Gannon is going to withdraw. That's where we
Holbrook.
step down, then the decking around the back.
Mhm.
Other one is for a house to be demolished and rebuilt. And the third is the health, Outer Cape Health is coming back.
Oh, that's right.
That was appealed because of the condition number 2 regarding the sign.
And
Okay.
they've worked out something with the abutter. So you may be
Okay.
off the hook, Will, if you want to take a day off. Is that what you were thinking?
Oh, no,
Oh, okay,
I'm
good.
here.
Okay, good.
I'm trying to keep you guys honest. you know,
Okay, very good.
Doing
Thank
my
you.
best.
Thank
Doing
you.
my best. No, I don't.
Okay, so,
We'll
yeah,
have to discuss that one, Will.
No, I don't.
Sharon,
yes,
Sharon, I just want to make sure, this is October 28th, correct?
October 28th, yes.
Got it.
October 28th, we'll begin at, which is not
30?
our next meeting, but the meeting after, we
that's it.
will begin at 6:30.
Okay.
And Chris is probably going to set up 2 different Zooms. So a Zoom for us to meet as an executive session and then a Zoom later for the cases, just so that we don't have any spillover.
Okay, thank
Good
you.
idea.
So.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
and if nothing else, then I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Anyone know if Manny's? doing
Lynn said he's home,
Okay.
but that he's just tired and recovering.
Why? I didn't hear. What happened to man?
You okay?
He had some sort of a procedure at the hospital and it did not do well, did not
Oh.
go well, and he ended up in ICU.
Oh,
And he is home, but it's going to take a while to recover. But I don't know what happened
Okay.
other than that.
Right.
very sorry to hear
Great.
that.
We probably shouldn't be going
Right.
any further in public anyway.
No.
About me.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. So we should move on. So I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Aye.
okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm not doing roll calls for adjourns. I'm just not. Okay, Chris, you can stop the
Aye.
recording.
Okay. Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, all. Good night, all.
Wait, let me